the number one NFL development coach right now is who?
Probably Kirby Smart. I think you see the Eagles trying to turn themselves into Georgia North, and heck, Nakobe Dean getting hurt was a pretty pivotal moment in their season, it feels like.
Yep.
But I just think that they look the most NFL ready. The way Georgia played, like I think about like Jermaine Johnson leaving Georgia to go to Florida State to show he could be an every down player. Georgia is so stacked, they rotate like an NFL team rotates.
Yeah. So
like these guys come in kind of NFL people, when they watch it, they see what they're already familiar with. They're like, okay. And then like you were talking about earlier with Georgia's practices and kind of being player-led and self-starter, like the intensity of the practice, the you might lose your job today factor, I think helps them when they get the NFL, because that is every day in the NFL.
1,000,000%. And also just like it's not just when you recruit at that high a level. And first of all, like the thing I love, there was a Georgia personnel guy a couple months ago. I was listening to a podcast, and I think he'd left. And he was talking about how they had to basically flag Kirby down when they first discovered Dylan Raiola, because Kirby doesn't watch quarterbacks at camps. Right. He only watches the trenches and corners, obviously. But like he just wants the trenches. But when you're Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, any of these front seven guys, not only do you have to worry about the guys who are in your class, you have to worry about some freshman who's probably the biggest athletic freak you've ever seen in your entire life. And the culture of competition is insane when you stack that many classes, that you know that there's going to be a
you think about it, the number one pick in the 2022 draft was on their defensive line, and he was not the best player on their defensive line in 2021. Right. I mean, that's all you need to know.
Yes, correct. And then beyond that, there's I want to be careful here, because I think that modern roster building uses the portal a lot, and all the great coaches do. But that core, that Georgia team, did not a lot of outgoing, not a lot of incoming. And now there is more incoming in this core. But what was interesting is I talked to a GM a couple of months ago, and I said, how has the portal changed everything? And I said, well, first of all, for a lot of positions, it's a good thing, because you consider like how much better the eval and Matt Castle would have been if Matt Castle could have gone and played at Arizona last year.
Yeah.
These quarterbacks are finding homes. Wide receivers are finding homes. These guys are finding the field. So it's
different for offensive and defensive linemen, because if you're good enough, you will win a job. It just might not be the job you thought you'd win.
Exactly. But the person said if there's any negatives, it's two-pronged. The first is maybe a couple of prospects are coming in draft meetings and being like, hey, how are you going to use me? What are you going to, like kind of like in the same way they go into meeting with, hey, what's the plan here? And the GM was just like, no, that's not how this works. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, that's not how this works, man. It's kind of a what can you do for me kind of thing. And that's a small percentage. But then the other thing is they said that you used to be able to know if it was a Saban player, or if it was a Lincoln Riley player, whatever it is, that there was going to be a level of de-recruitment, and that there was going to be a work ethic, and there was going to be a football humility, kind of like what we're talking about, right? And that's not always the case now for some of these guys from these reliable programs, because a player, a 5-star might if Saban, or if Mike Norvell, or if Mac Brown says, hey, 5-star, you're nothing, the 5-star can say, cool, I'm going to call Josh Heupel. And it's completely changed that expectation.
And you have to re-recruit your roster constantly.
Yep.
And some of these guys are going in with the NIL situation and hitting them up. And there'll be players who, I think my hammy's going to tighten up this week if we don't rework the deal. So like I keep telling players on my show, like, this is the best it's ever going to be for you.
Yep.
Like when you unionize and our employees, you're not going to be able to do this anymore. So enjoy this now, because this is like, it went from the players having absolutely no leverage 10 years ago to having all the leverage now. There's probably a happy medium there, but I find it funny because I've watched, the fat cats in charge keep everything for so long. Like, I'm enjoying watching the players torture them, but it's probably not sustainable.
something.